Lina Zhang was not someone easily distracted. As an experienced biologist, she had spent most of her life studying alien organisms, species never before known to humanity. Nexus Station, where she worked, was one of the most advanced scientific research centers in the solar system, dedicated to critical studies of extraterrestrial biodiversity. Orbiting the planet Dita, this station brought together scientists, researchers, and alien life forms from across the galaxy. Lina preferred working at night. It was the time when the laboratory was mostly empty. The dim glow of electronic control panels, combined with the quiet environment, allowed her to focus completely on her work. She often recorded experiment results, analyzed samples from distant planets, and studied life in extreme environments. However, her responsibilities extended beyond biological research. She also had to address complex issues, such as protecting alien species from threats, particularly interference from smugglers and resource exploiters. On a night like any other, Lina stood before a biological microwave, intently observing microorganisms developing in a specialized environment. These cells, sourced from a distant planet, were reacting unusually to the conditions Lina had created. These peculiar signs filled her with excitement. This could be a breakthrough in her research, a discovery that might completely change humanity's understanding of extraterrestrial life. While she was engrossed in her work, the laboratory's communication screen suddenly lit up. On the screen was a message from Dr. Xeran, a member of the Xeran delegation. Although Lina was used to work-related requests from colleagues, this message was distinctly different. Dr. Xeran wasn't one of those who frequently exchanged research discussions with her but was a reserved individual with a highly serious approach to work. Their relationship was mainly professional, with little communication outside of scientific matters. "Lina," the message began. "We have a serious issue in the Xeran habitat. An unusual event is occurring, and I need your help. The young of the Xeran species are showing signs of illness, and we cannot determine the cause. These creatures are vital to our biological studies, and if we don't act immediately, the consequences could be severe. We urgently need you here." Lina paused, her eyes fixed on the screen. She had heard much about the Xerans, a highly intelligent species within the Galactic Council. The Xerans communicated through electromagnetic signals and had a unique ecosystem. Researching them wasn't just a matter of biology but held significant cultural and scientific value in interspecies relations. The Xeran young had never been a research focus for Lina before. But she understood their importance for the survival of the Xeran species and intercivilizational relations. Lina couldn't refuse this request, even though it came when she was deeply immersed in her work. She stood up, hurriedly packing up her experimental equipment and preparing to leave. "I'll come immediately," Lina replied as she prepared her medical and research kit. She quickly left the lab, heading toward the Xeran delegation station, where the unusual event was unfolding. When she arrived, the atmosphere was tenser than usual. Staff and scientists moved about hastily, exchanging worried information. Dr. Xeran awaited Lina at the main entrance. She was a tall creature with sleek fur, long limbs, and a cold demeanor, but her eyes were filled with worry. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Lina," Dr. Xeran said. "We've tried everything to treat the young, but their condition shows no signs of improvement. They're deteriorating rapidly, and I fear this could have grave repercussions for the Xeran species if we don't solve this issue." Lina nodded, unable to hide the concern in her eyes. This was a situation she had never faced before, and she knew the task ahead would not be easy. However, she also realized this was an opportunity to conduct critical real-world research while protecting the lives of these alien creatures. "We'll start by examining their biological samples. The problem may stem from a factor we haven't yet identified," Lina told Dr. Xeran. This was the moment when the real adventure began. Lina wasn't just confronting a medical emergency, she was embarking on a dangerous and intense journey, one she couldn't yet fully foresee. Questions about life, about the relationships between alien species and humanity, had now become more urgent than ever. Lina stepped into the Xeran's habitat, a zone distinctly different from the rest of Nexus Station. Though it was primarily a research area, the ecosystem's unique design made it stand out. The alien species, part predatory bird and part highly intelligent beings, were provided with a specialized living environment. Large nests floated on air pillars, constructed from ultra-durable materials, suspended in the air. Everything here catered to the Xeran's specific biological needs. Dr. Xeran greeted Lina as soon as she entered. With a commanding presence and gray-white plumage, Xeran naturally drew attention. However, today her usual stern gaze was replaced with palpable concern. "Lina, I am deeply grateful you came," Xeran said, her voice unusually subdued, lacking its characteristic strength. "This situation is dire. These hatchlings are the future of our species. If we cannot save them, the Xeran people will face a catastrophe." Lina approached the three hatchlings lying in meticulously built nests. She could feel their fatigue and illness in every movement. Their flat bodies, covered in silky, lustrous feathers, lacked the usual gleam in their eyes. Their beaks and throats seemed obstructed, hindering their breathing. Lina gently placed a hand on one of the hatchlings, immediately noticing its abnormal fever. "They're burning up," Lina observed. "This might be caused by bacteria or a virus, but I can't determine the specifics yet." "We've tried all traditional Xeran remedies," Xeran replied, unable to conceal her frustration. "Medicines, energy therapies, even spiritual intervention from our healers. Nothing has worked." Lina nodded, realizing that if conventional methods failed, the root cause might be far deeper. She decided to conduct a thorough medical examination using Nexus Station's advanced emergency research tools. She opened a small case containing specialized biological instruments she often used for alien lifeform studies. She began scanning the hatchling's internal organs with a bio-ultrasound device, recording anomalies. The scanner revealed rapid cellular degradation, not typical of any known diseases Lina had encountered in her studies. "This isn't a conventional illness," Lina murmured, studying the scan results. "I think an external factor is disrupting their physiology. It could be a toxin or a novel biological agent." Reviewing her experimental data, Lina found a significant clue. The hatchling cells showed signs of infection by an extremely unusual bacterium capable of thriving in their planet's unique atmosphere. Additionally, there was evidence of strong interaction between the bacteria and their immune system, weakening their defenses. It might be an allergic reaction or a unique bacterium that suppresses their immune system, Lina speculated, searching her database. "But I need additional samples to pinpoint the exact cause." Dr. Xeran watched Lina with growing concern but knew the only way to save the hatchlings was to continue researching and gathering information. "We will assist you in every way possible. I'll have our engineers prepare atmospheric and water samples from the habitat for your analysis." Alongside Dr. Xeran and her Xeran colleagues, Lina began collecting samples and conducting extensive tests. As she delved deeper into the mystery, she couldn't help but wonder if this abnormality was due to external interference or a natural phenomenon within the Xeran ecosystem. Amid her research, Lina made a startling discovery. The bacteria were not merely natural organisms but had been triggered by a peculiar virus. This revelation led her to a troubling hypothesis: could someone be deliberately weakening the Xerans? If so, was this a biological warfare strategy? This question left Lina pondering dangers she had never imagined before. Her encounter with the Xerans was not just a research opportunity but a sign of deeper, more perilous complexities unfolding. Turning to Dr. Xeran, who stood nearby anxiously watching over the hatchlings, Lina spoke with determination. "I'll need an air sample from their habitat. We need more data to uncover any hidden threats in your ecosystem." Dr. Xeran nodded and instructed her team. Together with a group of Xeran scientists, Lina conducted environmental tests, not only to save the hatchlings but also to uncover potential dangers threatening the entire Xeran species. She sensed a greater danger lurking in the shadows, and her adventure was only beginning. As Lina continued to study the samples from the 3 Xeran juveniles, a strange truth gradually emerged. Beneath the fragile fur and thin outer shell of these creatures, she discovered an unusual biological phenomenon. The bacteria she had identified earlier, along with traces of strange substances within their bodies, were not the sole causes of their severe debilitation. Focusing her research on the blood and tissue samples of the juveniles, Lina also conducted a chemical analysis of their bodies. The initial results revealed nothing surprising until she examined a blood sample from the largest juvenile. There, Lina discovered the presence of an unfamiliar substance, a mild anesthetic known in the medical practices of many alien civilizations but not something naturally found in Xeran's environment. This substance reduced bodily activity, rendering creatures easier to transport without resistance. It was not potent enough to be lethal but left the juveniles in a prolonged state of weakness, even to the point of unconsciousness. Lina carefully documented her findings, struggling to believe what she had uncovered. This anesthetic, while used in medical procedures by some civilizations, was entirely foreign to Xeran's ecosystem. It was not a natural part of their environment. This raised a pressing question about the substance's origin. Someone is undoubtedly interfering with the Xeran species, she concluded. Armed with new theories, Lina delved deeper into her data. Investigating the origins of the anesthetic, she stumbled upon an alarming revelation: the substance was strongly associated with the Vath, a reclusive species notorious for their dubious activities across the galaxy. The Vath, though scarcely known, were infamous for their shady dealings and meddling in the ecosystems of other species. Rumors about them often revolved around smuggling rare creatures from distant planets, causing the decline or even extinction of those they preyed upon. Realizing that the anesthetic might be part of the Vatha's smuggling strategy, Lina reevaluated all the events since her arrival on Xeran's planet. From the initial signs of fatigue and illness in the juveniles to their inexplicably weakened state, everything pointed to one conclusion: these juveniles might have been hunted, illegally transported across space, and smuggled back to this location only to fall ill and weaken further. They might have been taken from their natural environment, Lina thought to herself. And now, they're suffering the consequences of being separated from their mothers and their habitat. She returned to Dr. Xeran, who was waiting nearby with the Xeran juveniles, a constant look of worry etched on her face. Lina decided to share her findings, knowing it could escalate the tension further. Dr. Xeran, I've discovered something significant, Lina began, her tone serious. These juveniles aren't just suffering from a common illness. They've been exposed to a mild anesthetic, one that puts them into a subdued state, making them easy to transport without resistance. This substance doesn't exist naturally in Xeran's environment. Dr. Xeran looked at Lina, her face puzzled. An anesthetic? But what is it? And why is it here? This substance originates from the Vath, Lina explained. A reclusive species often involved in dubious activities, including smuggling rare creatures from other planets. These juveniles may have been captured and illegally transported through space. Dr. Xeran's eyes widened, and she stepped back as though hearing an unthinkable accusation. The Vath? Smuggling, she stammered, her voice trembling. That's impossible. The Xeran species cannot be exploited like this. We are members of the Galactic Council. That's precisely why we need to act quickly, Lina responded, her voice calm yet filled with urgency. The Vath might be trying to weaken or even destroy the Xeran species for reasons we don't yet understand. The tension in the air was palpable. Dr. Xeran slowly stepped aside and turned to face the juveniles lying on the medical beds. If what you're saying is true, we're dealing with a threat far greater than a simple illness. This could be a sinister scheme from an outside force. This realization was no longer just about illness but a tangible threat to the Xeran species. The juveniles in the care of Lina and Dr. Xeran were not merely research subjects but pieces in a much larger game, a game the Xeran were completely unaware of. Lina took a deep breath, determined not to be deterred by her fears. She had seen too much cruelty and secrecy in the universe to let another species fall victim to such dark machinations. Dr. Xeran, I need your help. We must find a way to resolve this issue, not just for these juveniles but for the future of the Xeran species. Lina stood in front of the computer screen in the laboratory, the glow of the control panels reflecting off her face, revealing tension and determination. She had requested access to the security logs of Nexus Station, hoping to find a clue to confirm her suspicions about the smuggling of Xeran cubs. Granted access, Lina immediately began examining the reports and data. Numbers and graphs flashed before her eyes like relentless waves, but Lina couldn't take her gaze off the screen. She combed through all shipments and transport routes, focusing on suspicious transactions occurring at night when most station activities quieted down. Something strange caught her eye. Over the past month, a series of large shipments had been transported in and out of the Xeran habitat area. These shipments were poorly documented, with no clear reasons for their purpose. Lina quickly realized these shipments were not ordinary goods. They lacked clear recipients or addresses and were identified only by a few cryptic codes, a common tactic in shady dealings. There was no doubt in her mind, these shipments were directly tied to the illegal trade of Xeran cubs. Every time the cubs were transported, an untraceable shipment appeared. These shipments carried nothing but shadows and the silence of a secret process operating under the lights of Nexus Station. Her hands went cold, but Lina couldn't stop. She continued combing through the reports, uncovering even more alarming details. One of the shipment codes she identified was directly linked to a spacecraft named Zenith 7, a notorious vessel whispered about in rumors concerning smuggling and criminal activities throughout the galaxy. This ship had surfaced in security reports years ago but always vanished after completing its transactions. It seemed a sophisticated and powerful smuggling ring had been operating for a long time, and now it had set its sights on the Xerans. Lina felt an overwhelming urge to act. She couldn't let this continue, especially knowing the Xeran cubs were suffering at the hands of these mysterious perpetrators. These creatures were not just victims of a power game, they were symbols of the protection every being in the galaxy deserved. She knew that if she didn't act now, what she had discovered would remain meaningless fragments in a case spiraling out of control. She turned to Dr. Xeran, who stood silently beside her. Lina could see the anxiety in her eyes. Dr. Xeran knew better than anyone that this truth would not only shake the Xeran species but also potentially plunge them into a greater crisis for which they were unprepared. Lina broke the silence between them with determination. Dr. Xeran, I've uncovered a series of unusual transactions. These shipments are linked to the smuggling of Xeran cubs, Lina said, her voice tense. And I've identified a spacecraft involved in these transactions, Zenith 7. This ship has repeatedly been involved in smuggling and shady dealings across the galaxy. Dr. Xeran froze momentarily, her eyes widening in shock. Zenith 7, she repeated, her voice trembling slightly. That's one of the most dangerous smuggling vessels in the region. It always operates in the shadows. No one knows what it's truly transporting, but everyone knows it's involved in dirty dealings. What do we do now? Lina asked, her eyes blazing with resolve. Dr. Xeran took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions before responding. We need to find a way to stop these operations before we lose everything. But we can't do it alone. Lina knew Dr. Xeran was right. Confronting smugglers was no easy task, especially against powerful and enigmatic forces like the Veth. However, she also understood that if they didn't act immediately, the Xeran species might be destroyed, and thousands of cubs would be doomed to lives they hadn't chosen. So, what do we do? Lina asked again, her tone serious. Dr. Xeran paused to think before replying slowly. We need a strong group of allies, people who can help us investigate and counter Zenith 7's operations. And I believe that if we can uncover who's behind these illegal transports, we can bring everything to light." Lina nodded, her mind made up. To put an end to this smuggling, they needed not only to confront the transporters but also to trace the origins of these shady activities and neutralize the threat posed by the Veth. She looked at the Xeran cubs lying on the hospital beds, her heart aching at their fragility. She knew that every passing moment was one in which the Xeran species edged closer to devastation. And now, the journey to uncover the truth had begun. Lina stood in her laboratory, surrounded by the dim glow of control panels. But the soft light could not quell the growing tension in her heart. She had just uncovered one of the most horrifying secrets of her tenure at Nexus Station, an active smuggling operation happening right under the noses of the Galactic leaders, targeting the Xeran species. To Lina, this was no mere smuggling scheme, it was a fight for the survival of an entire species. She could no longer stand idle and wait for the authorities to take action. It was a decision made in a moment of intense pressure, but Lina knew that if she didn't act now, it could be too late. The young Xeran, held captive and transported under cruel conditions, couldn't wait. Every passing second threatened their lives. Taking a deep breath, Lina resolved to pour every ounce of energy into this mission. She was more than a biologist, she was a warrior, a former soldier who had served in brutal campaigns. The combat skills she had learned in the past would ensure she didn't fail. It was time to confront the masterminds manipulating Nexus Station, and hesitation had no place in this fight. Lina opened a drawer under her desk and retrieved a concealed weapons kit. These were not tools an ordinary scientist would carry but a specialized combat set she had brought with her from her military days. A handheld laser gun, designed for long-range attacks that left no trace. A set of versatile short knives, perfect for close-quarters combat. And finally, a belt packed with many explosive devices, capable of creating small but effective disruptions when necessary. Lina knew that everything she carried could save the young Xeran, but they could also help her eliminate dangerous smugglers without leaving evidence. She continued her preparations, eyes fixed on the computer screens tracking movements around the station. Nexus Station was vast, and the cargo area was the epicenter of clandestine activities. Lina had meticulously studied the transport routes and now knew exactly where to go. She planned to act at night, when the station's inhabitants were asleep, ensuring no one would notice her absence until it was too late. But Lina couldn't do this alone. She needed help, even just a few allies. Dr. Xeran had provided valuable information, but she couldn't involve him in this operation not because she didn't trust him, but because this battle was too dangerous. Lina couldn't risk anyone else's life. Instead, she decided to reach out to some old allies from her military days, people who could assist her in neutralizing the threats. Using a private communication system, she encrypted her messages and sent out a call for help. Only her former comrades would grasp the gravity of the situation, and they wouldn't waste time coming to her aid. A soft chime signaled that a message had been sent successfully. Lina stood up, gripping her laser gun, and began moving out of the laboratory. She couldn't hesitate any longer. The young Xeran awaited rescue, and she couldn't leave them in the hands of these ruthless criminals. As Lina moved through the deserted corridors of Nexus Station, she felt the stillness around her. Everything seemed to be in a state of suspension, as if the entire station was anticipating a major event. Lina couldn't help but think about how Nexus Station was not just her workplace but also home to thousands of beings from across the star systems. Every hidden corner of the station held stories, relationships, and secrets. But tonight, Lina would change everything. She couldn't let these connections deter her. She had to do the right thing. When she reached the cargo area, Lina noticed an eerie quiet. No one was around, and every door was locked. It was time to act. Using her unlocking tool, she bypassed the security measures and entered the high security zone. Inside, she found piles of cargo, and next to them, the young Xeran lying motionless in their containment units. The small creatures were barely moving, some showing signs of severe exhaustion. Lina felt a surge of anger rising but quickly suppressed it. She had no time for emotions. She carefully inspected each unit, looking for signs of the sedatives she had previously detected. One particular container drew her attention. It had a much thicker protective layer than the others. Lina had no doubt this was where the rarest young Xeran were held and the focal point of the smuggling operation. She drew her laser gun, aimed at the protective layer, and with a small explosion, shattered the glass. Inside the container, 3 young Xeran lay still. She quickly checked to confirm they were alive but knew they wouldn't last much longer. Lina didn't waste time. She used all her strength to place the fragile creatures into a specially designed rescue bag and then headed swiftly toward the exit. Lina understood that this battle wouldn't end with one container. The people behind this smuggling ring wouldn't let her off easily. But she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The covert battle had begun, and Lina would not stop until the full truth was brought to light. Lina stood facing the main entrance of the docking zone, her heart pounding in her chest. Tonight, the faint starlight illuminated a small portion of the area, but to her, that light offered no comfort. In this darkness, everything became unpredictable, and a life-and-death battle was about to unfold. She could wait no longer. Time was running out, and she had decided to act. Everything now hinged on her agility and decisiveness. On her body was a sophisticated combat suit, a refined product of the technology she had encountered during her military service. This suit not only protected her from physical threats but also reduced her thermal and sound signatures, making her nearly invisible. Alongside, Lina carried a range of specialized weapons: a handheld laser gun, a combat knife, and many explosive devices along with hacking tools to breach the station's security systems. Tonight, she was not just a biologist but also a resolute warrior, ready to do whatever it took to save the innocent creatures being trafficked. She moved closer to the door leading to the transport area, feeling a surge of intense tension. Everything was silent, too silent. Lina couldn't shake the feeling that those behind this smuggling operation had likely realized someone was approaching. This only strengthened her resolve, as she knew if she didn't act now, the Xeran cubs would never see freedom. Using the techniques of a seasoned fighter, she moved swiftly yet silently, calculating every step. Reaching the security door, Lina pulled out a compact tool designed to unlock high-security doors. She focused, her sharp eyes scanning every detail on the device's small screen. Within seconds, the door was unlocked without making a sound. Stepping inside, she saw several station personnel gathered around large crates, preparing to transport them. They hadn't noticed her presence. Lina seized the opportunity, drawing her laser gun and immediately firing a shot at the control system of the transport zone. A small explosion echoed, and the control system temporarily shut down, startling everyone nearby. "There's an intruder," one of the men near the crates shouted. But Lina was ready. She quickly dashed forward, employing precise combat moves. One of the smugglers was immediately knocked out, while the others panicked and began reaching for their weapons. But she was too fast. With a quick spin, Lina grabbed one of them and used him as a human shield as a laser bullet whizzed past from behind. The atmosphere grew tense. Lina wasted no time. She opened the crate doors, revealing the Xeran cubs inside, motionless due to the effects of anesthetics. Her eyes swiftly scanned the small creatures, and the tension in her chest tightened. She had only minutes before additional station forces arrived to back up the smugglers. There was no time to keep fighting those standing in her way. Lina quickly pulled out her combat knife and cut the cords connected to the anesthetic devices, freeing the Xeran cubs. She hurriedly moved them out of the warehouse to a safer location, closer to an exit where she could smuggle them off the station. But as she worked, she discovered something unexpected. Beyond the Xeran cubs she had planned to rescue, there were other crates containing more captured creatures under heavy guard. She had anticipated this, but seeing the diverse creatures in such dire conditions ignited a renewed determination she couldn't turn back now. Using her compact hacking device, Lina breached the station's security systems, unlocking all the containment crates holding the captive creatures. One by one, the crates opened, revealing bizarre and rare creatures from across different planets. Each species was highly valuable to smugglers, and without timely intervention, they would have been illegally sold across the galaxy. However, not all the smugglers had been neutralized. The sound of rapid footsteps from the entrance signaled the arrival of station security forces. She was out of time. Lina quickly secured the Xeran cubs in a temporary safe zone and prepared to confront the impending attack. Gripping her laser gun tightly, she steadied herself for the next clash. The security systems might have been compromised, but she couldn't let them harm the innocent creatures. The station forces stormed into the area as Lina braced herself. She didn't back down. With agility and refined military tactics, she demonstrated that a lone fighter could battle not just with weapons but with relentless perseverance and unyielding willpower. The fight was only beginning. Lina stood on the deck of the spacecraft she had seized from the smugglers, her gaze fixed on the infinite void ahead. She had successfully disrupted the smuggling operation, rescuing the young Xerans and many other creatures. Yet, this victory brought her no solace. Instead, it made her realize that a true war had begun, one far more brutal than anything she had ever faced. In Lina's heart, the memories of the moments she saved those innocent beings remained vivid. The image of the young Xerans being rescued, their wide eyes filled with bewilderment but brimming with hope, was etched deeply in her mind. Those creatures had become a symbol of a struggle not just for the survival of one species, but a fight for humanity itself, pushed to the brink. Lina wasn't just protecting the Xerans, she was defending herself and everything she believed in. She suddenly understood that her actions were more than a minor triumph. She had challenged the power of the galaxy's dominant forces, those who treated life as mere commodities to be traded. These weren't just any adversaries, they were powerful and dangerous organizations that wouldn't let her actions go unpunished. Lina knew the fight was far from over, it had only just begun. Aboard the spacecraft, Lina started planning her next move. She knew the smugglers' threat hadn't been entirely eradicated. While she had disrupted a segment of their network, these smuggling organizations were not easily dismantled. In truth, they wouldn't stop until they had avenged their defeat. Moreover, there were forces in the universe, forces Lina hadn't even encountered yet, that would not overlook her defiance. Lina sat at the control console, scanning the information collected by her hacking devices. The data revealed a network far larger than she had initially imagined. The young Xerans were just one part of a massive operation trafficking countless creatures, orchestrated with complex plans and participants from many star systems. These weren't mere criminal groups, they were shadow empires, strong, resourceful, and ruthless in protecting their interests. Meanwhile, news of Lina's actions spread rapidly. Throughout the galaxy, whispers began to circulate about a girl, a warrior who had dared to defy the system, rescuing innocent beings from the hands of criminal powers. Tales of the Xeran warrior began to spread, with Lina's story passed from one planet to another. She became a legend, a symbol of resilience, of unyielding determination, and of a refusal to submit to oppression and injustice. Yet, Lina felt no pride in what she had done. She knew it was impossible to defeat a colossal force with just one small victory. The truth behind everything she had done remained shrouded in mystery, and if she truly wanted to protect innocent beings, the Xerans and countless other species, she would have to keep fighting without rest. The smuggling organizations were still out there, and her battle would not be easy. That night, as Lina prepared for her next journey, an unexpected signal appeared on the ship's screen. It was an emergency signal from one of the most distant planets in the galaxy. It didn't take Lina long to realize that this wasn't a random distress call. It was an invitation, a challenge, and possibly a trap. but no part of her was willing to back down. She had come too far to stop now. "Lina, get ready. This is only the beginning," she whispered, staring at the data-filled screen before her. With unwavering determination, Lina turned the ship's helm and set course toward the signal. She knew this war would not just be about physical battles. It would push her to limits she had never imagined. But she also understood that in moments of desperation, humanity reveals its true strength. The infinite void of space might be dark and perilous, but Lina would not retreat. She was human. And in this vast universe, a human who dares to face everything, a human who fiercely defends what they believe in, can become a storm. A fierce, unstoppable storm. Lina stood gazing into the endless void through the window of her office at Nexus Station, her mind filled with worries. After the battle to free the young Xeran, the station had returned to its calm, but to Lina, this tranquility was only a temporary facade. The forces she had confronted were not easily defeated, and she knew they would not let it go. Deep down, Lina realized that her war had only just begun. Everything so far had been preparation for a much bigger battle. Amid the complexity of the political situation in the galaxy, Lina felt as if she was standing on the edge of a cliff. The smuggling organizations and underground empires she had broken were just the tip of the iceberg. These forces not only had dirty ambitions, but also had deep power networks. Nexus Station, where she had begun her journey, was not just a place of scientific research but also a focal point of covert conflicts between factions across the galaxy. In the weeks following the attack, Lina spent most of her time in the laboratory, studying biological samples from the Xeran and other species she had rescued. But her heart could not completely detach from preparing for the next battle. Lina knew that if she did not have stronger strategies and resources, not only the young Xeran but her own life would be at risk. Lina decided to begin serious training, not only to improve her combat skills but also to prepare for a larger assault. She could no longer rely on the resources of Nexus Station. Although it provided her with advanced tools, Lina knew she needed to be ready for any scenario, including space attacks, where there was nothing but darkness and brutality. She began searching for allies. While Nexus Station was a place for scientists, it was also a center of complex relationships between different species in the galaxy. There were peacekeeping organizations, but also forces that wanted to exploit these relationships to control and manipulate the situation. Lina could not fight alone in such a vast and dangerous universe. She needed allies, people willing to rise up against greater enemies. One night, while Lina was sifting through data and organizing her plans, a signal suddenly appeared on the screen. This time, it wasn't an emergency signal like before, but a separate message, encrypted and seemingly an invitation. It was a signal from a shadowy organization Lina had heard of, Stellaris, a group of renowned strategists and warriors in the galaxy. This organization was known for its combat prowess and efficient execution of covert operations. They were known as defenders of justice in the universe, but there were also rumors that they had darker goals. Lina could not ignore this opportunity. After everything she had been through, she understood that this war could not be fought by a single individual. To confront powerful forces and dangerous organizations, she needed support. In this crucial moment, she decided to contact Stellaris, accept the invitation, and hope that this would be the right move. The meeting with Stellaris representative was not what Lina had imagined. This organization was not full of crazies bent on domination. They were strategists, people who viewed problems in the galaxy from a different perspective. The representative of Stellaris, a man named Eric, told Lina that they had been watching her struggle for a long time. They knew that Lina had done what very few dared to do, and they wanted to provide her with the resources she needed to continue fighting. "We are not your enemies, Lina," Eric said in a calm voice. "We just want to help you realize your full potential. But you need to understand that this fight is not just about defeating an enemy. It's part of a larger plan, a game that you haven't fully seen. Lina could not deny that Eric's offer was tempting. With Stellaris' help, she would have enough power to deal with any enemy. But Lina also knew that this alliance could bring significant risks. Stellaris might not be entirely altruistic, and she had to be prepared for any situation. Upon returning to Nexus Station, Lina began to realize that there were not only enemies in the shadows but also traitors within her own ranks. She found signs that some people at the station were secretly collaborating with the dark forces she was fighting. These people knew they couldn't achieve their goals without help from within, and Lina became their next target. With Stellaris' help, Lina began preparing for the next battle. She not only wanted revenge for the young Xeran but also aimed to put an end to the dark schemes unfolding around her. This war was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight to restore the values she had always believed in. Lina didn't just want to protect innocent creatures, she wanted to create a world where all beings could live freely, without oppression or exploitation. In this universe, where power and greed dominated, Lina was determined to become the change, to become a fire that could never be extinguished. The road ahead was full of challenges, but Lina knew she would never back down.